The Fancounters Celebrity Podcast, number 172. Coming to you from nowhere near the entertainment capital of the world, this is the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast.
You were like the carrot top of interviewers.
Wow, how disappointing was that question?
You did not just ask me that.
Well, that's a big question.
Never mind, I'm done. I'm not doing the show.
Wow, I can't believe it.
I'm telling you, I'm hooked.
Nick.
Yeah, he's so awesome. He's still a good friend of mine.
Welcome to the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast. My name's Nick.
And I'm Tracy.
And you can follow us on social media. Go to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's Fancounters Podcast. And we are also on Instagram at Fancounters Live, Facebook if you search Fancounters, and you can email us at hello@fancounters.com. Tracy, as you know, has come to our show as our new host, and today we're going to be talking about podcasts. And Tracy, tell me a little bit about like your entry into podcasting and how it's going for you, and like what you think of doing the show and interviewing people and all that. Like, what keeps you going with podcasting? Why were you excited to jump into this arena?
Well, I had done interviews in the past for a website many years ago, and in fact, you were involved with it a couple times down in Nashville, CMA Music Fest and things like that. And when you were doing the podcast earlier, I was always listening to it and enjoying it. And when the opportunity came up, to come and co-host it with you, I was like jumped at it because, first of all, I get to spend time with my friend, one, and number two, it's really cool interviewing these people and finding out and doing the research on them and just getting to know them in ways that you watch some interviews and there's like the same old canned questions.
Yeah,
and we get to ask them basically anything, and based on our research, we can bring up things that they like. Oh wow, that was a good question. Nobody's asked me that.
Right.
That's pretty cool about it. So that's what I like about it, and I think it's going great, and I love doing it, and I look forward to it.
Good. Today we're going to talk to a couple podcasters. One of them is a voiceover artist in the entertainment industry, so we're going to learn a little bit about him. His name is Andrew Morrison, and Andrew's going to start us off our show today. The Voiceover Coffee Shop is his podcast, but he also has been doing work commercially and in film and television, and we're going to find all about Andrew today. And then after that, joining us, so I'm going to do that one by myself.
Yep.
Mike Faber is joining us from the ESO Network. He has a podcast called Earth Station 1, and we'll follow up with him about his show and his network, and of course, a common interest of yours.
Absolutely.
Which is?
Comic books.
Yep. And he did sneak that one in at the very end about favorite comic books, and then they started geeking out, and I had to cut them off and end the show. So that's what you got to look forward to today.
There you go.
All right. So first up, Andrew Morrison. Stick around after that for Mike Faber right here on the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast. Andrew Morrison, welcome to the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, thanks. Good. So I brought you on the show today because you've got kind of an interesting thing going on. Not only do you host a podcast, but you are in the entertainment industry as a voiceover artist. And I haven't talked to too many of them. I've talked to some who have done like cartoons for Disney and that sort of thing, and there were voices. But you kind of run the gamut as far as doing things commercially as well as for the entertainment business, right?
Yeah, because the way voiceover work, it's a very contractual job. So producers, whether they be in the animation industry, whether they be business owners, commercial producers, they kind of have this problem where they need somebody to breathe life into a project, whether it's an animated character that they've been building forever, and they want a voice to be able to kind of make it more of a realistic person, or if they need somebody to sell something to you, or if they need somebody to be your on-hold recording when you call into a business. Hello, and thank you for calling the blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And so in doing voiceover, depending on what areas you market to, generally a large number of people end up doing a large number of different things. If you book a lot of animation, every once in a while you get a commercial thrown your way, or you'll get an e-learning project or something of that nature.
How much of your business gets thrown to you because they've heard your voice somewhere else?
Um, a good bit, to be honest. I have people contacting me saying, "Hey," and generally because producers talk.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be one producer will be like, "Hey, I need somebody that like fits this voice description," and like oh, well, I actually just worked with this person, especially within the e-learning community, because a lot of instructional designers and a lot of different colleges and things like that are interconnected. So teachers talk to teachers, producers talk to producers. So if you do something well and they're impressed with it, they're like, yeah, no, I know this person and he was memorable. He did a great job. And so I get a lot of referrals that way.
Okay. What's like the largest project that you have personally been involved in?
I was the main character of a video game that is coming out to onto Steam in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And it will be on consoles at the beginning of 2022. So with video games, they don't give you a script. They give you a packet. And I was blessed enough to be the main character of Project Boost by Immersion Games.
That's the name of the game, Project Boost?
Project Boost.
Okay.
Yes, it is. And so no matter what different path that character goes on, and they've been spending years developing this game, so it has like a lot of different like maze and pathways and different choices for the character. No matter what choice that character makes, I need to be able to voice that story. And then with a lot of video games, there's a lot of reaction noises. So it's like 10 to 20 minutes of just, okay, we just need the sound of you jumping or of you getting stabbed, so they can program one of these 10 noises when spear equals spleen will generate and things like that. So, I mean, those take a couple weeks to a couple months, just depending on how far they are on the writing process, how if they're like, oh, well, we want to build another pathway, we need to bring them back in.
Oh, wow.
So those, they're so much fun. They're exhausting, but they are so much fun.
So if you get a big packet, are you doing it from home, first of all?
Yes.
Okay.
Especially now, because we started production on that early last year.
Okay.
And so it was after COVID hit. So as far as like the general reaction noises, those were relatively easy for him to go, all right, here's what we need. We need like 10 minutes of jumping, 10 minutes of you getting stabbed, 10 minutes of you dying, 10 minutes of grunts.
10 minutes is a long time. If you're just constantly like, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
But they want to make sure that they have a variety, so that way no two sound the same.
Yeah.
So that way whenever one of those noises do auto-generate, that it has a wide variety, so you don't hear the same 5 noises over and over again.
That's very cool. That is really neat. So it's definitely a different life for you every day. I mean, you get different scripts and different projects thrown your way. What's been challenging for you? Like, what's the one where you're like, I don't know how to tackle this, or, do you get a lot of direction? And so what's challenging, and talk about the direction of if it's...
Well, I think direction makes it less challenging, because then I can kind of get a feel of what the director wants. Because a lot of times directors don't know what they want. They have a general idea of what they think might fit, but they don't quite know it till they hear it, because no two voices sound the same.
True.
So which is why people hold auditions, and why they get so many emails in their inbox all the time of different voiceover talent going, hey, pick me. So when I do have direction, I'm able to, when I'm doing my lines, they're able to come back and say, okay, well, we kind of like the first take that you did a little bit better. And so I can give them more of a variety. While one of the more challenging aspects of it is probably audiobook work.
Oh.
Audiobook work is it's a marathon, and you're just, imagine sitting there and just reading out loud for 8 hours. So I have to read the book first, so that way, say the character at the end of the book has like some like deep dark secret and there's a plot twist. I want to be able to portray that all throughout the book, at least have it like as a little secret in my head, so that way somebody going back and being like, oh yeah, no, I can kind of tell that he had that little like foreshadowing going on. And it's not voicing one character, it's voicing every character that the book may have. And so you're going through this you're the voice actor, you're the producer, and 1 hour of audiobook work takes maybe like 5 to 6 hours to do, because you got to go through and clean it up and edit it, and then re-listen to it to make sure it all flows correctly. And it's a lot. It's so much fun. But
I can tell you have a passion for it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But even with books, I wonder, are you giving them multiple versions? Because if it's I think of the first audiobook I ever probably ran into is, I remember Bill Clinton did his book, and I forget what it's called, but I mean, it was like literally this thick, and he read the whole thing. At least I think. It might have been abridged, or I'm not sure. But I thought, for the amount of times that somebody could stutter in everyday speech, you have to have that going on in a book. So for an editor to put it together and multiple takes, I think that'd be a nightmare project.
I mean, so I do something called punch and roll, where essentially if I mispronounce a word, I can stop the recording and go back and then repronounce it, and then continue the book from there. And then when I go through the last time before I send it back to the publishing company and re-listen to it to make sure it flows properly, that's where I'll be like, okay, maybe I need a little bit more space between those words, or a little bit more between the sentences to make sure it flows correctly. As far as the character work goes, generally when I'm working with a publishing company, I like to talk to the author themselves. So that way I can be like, okay, I read the book. Here are all the characters that are in the book. So here are my take on those different character voices. Here's how I imagine them based on my vocal capabilities and the beautiful painting that you've pictured. Yeah. This picture that you've painted, rather.
Hit that button. Go
about
back.
What the character looks like. Right. About what the character looks like. So, and then I'll give them, okay, here's what I think they sound like. Is this what you imagine? And then we kind of go back and forth from there until they're like, yeah, this is what I want.
Tell me about the Voiceover Coffee Shop. It's another podcast that features other voiceover talent just like you.
Yeah, so it started last year. In the voiceover community, we have a lot of large conferences. There are networking events, there are large parties, if you will, where voiceover artists get together. There are lectures, learning about different aspects of the industry, and then we all get together and have drinks, and we talk to producers, and it's like our big thing every year, especially VO Atlanta. Now, this past year with the epidemic, I wasn't able to go walk around and rub elbows with people the way I generally do. It's a lot harder to network virtually. Yeah. And so I started messaging voiceover artists on LinkedIn, finding their emails on Facebook, whether I knew them through the same channels, I knew them personally, or whether I was like, I watched this person on TV as a kid. So what could this hurt? Yeah. So expecting a lot of people to be like, no, I'm too busy, and maybe get like 1 or 2 people a week, I ended up just having coffee with like 10 to 15 people a week over Zoom meetings.
That's awesome.
And I was gaining so much information. It was ridiculous, because even in the large amount of work that I do, there's always going to be those dark shadows that I'm unaware of. Like, okay, I do a lot of e-learning work, but I don't know what somebody who only markets to e-learning and has been doing e-learning for like 30 years.
True.
I don't know somebody who does animation in a Walt Disney or Warner Brothers studio, what their daily schedule looks like. So I decided to start it as a podcast, because the voiceover community has been so welcoming to me and has given me so much information. And when I first started and bought my first microphone, they just kind of took me under their wing and taught me a majority of what I know. So I wanted an outlook to be able to give that back to that community. Be like, okay, how are these other voiceover artists portraying value in what they do to their clients? How do they take their coffee in the morning? It's not the general interview where you're getting the same 10 questions railed into them that you could find 10 of on a YouTube channel. It's more of that personalized, this is who this person is. This is what they're known for, but here's what resonates with them the most, and kind of showing behind the smoke and mirrors. Like, come down and have a cup of coffee with us and just hang out and know what the other side of it's like.
Very cool. Now, what like you mentioned Disney people and that kind of thing. Have you had people who are voicing cartoons and stuff on the podcast so far?
Yes, I've had Sam Quasman. He is the voice of Little Quacker in Tom and Jerry. He's done a handful of pieces for Adult Swim's Robot Chicken.
Okay.
I've had Neil Ross, who has done stuff for G.I. Joe, Transformers, Bobby's World, a majority of our childhood.
Cool.
I have upcoming at the end of this month, I am talking with Bob Bergen, who is the voice of Porky Pig. He's the voice of Tweety Bird. He's the voice of No Face from Spirit Away. His roster is extensive. I've had Mercedes Lewis, who's done a rather large number of video games. So, I mean, and all of these people are people that I consider my friends.
That's great. Bob Bergen, I'm really surprised about that. I mean, and that's the thing. I don't think your podcast, especially now that you're explaining who some of these guests are, it's not just for voiceover people. Anybody who like really appreciates the craft of putting fake voices to fake characters would probably really appreciate it.
Well, I don't necessarily think that the characters are fake in that way.
Well, you bring them to life. They have no voice until you create that for them.
Right. And so you got to put a piece of yourself on the microphone. Because, I mean, you can play pretend all day long, but if it's not authentic, it's not believable.
That's right. So it's called the Voice Over Coffee Shop. You can find it pretty much wherever podcasts are, but you also have a website for it at vocoffeeshop.com, right?
That is correct.
And where can we follow you on social media, Andrew?
Most of my tag handles are Voice Bard. So on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, it's generally Voice Bard or voicebard.com. A little bit of a nerd myself, and bards in the way that their magic works is it's generally musically inclined or utilizing an instrument of some sort. So the instrument that I utilize to make magic is my voice.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. See, I didn't know where that came from either. I thought VO Bard, that's a weird website, but makes sense now.
Yeah.
What else you got coming up? Anything? The video game again? Mention the name is.
It's Project Boost.
Thank you. And that's. Is it just an? Is it an online game or is it like PS4 or 5 kind of situation?
It's going to be online in the spring, and then towards the beginning of next year is when it's going to. They're developing it for consoles right now, so it'll be available for consoles maybe late 2021, early 2022.
That's pretty exciting. Congratulations on that. That's a great feat.
Thank you. I can't talk about all my projects because there are a lot of NDAs that have been signed. I am the main character of a series coming on to Amazon Prime in the summer called The Unknown Adventure, about this furry fox named Isaac who crash lands onto Earth and kind of tries to find his way back, but then runs into a whole bunch of trouble, and that one was a lot of fun. But
is that a kids show?
Yes, sir. It is.
Oh, good. My kids will like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for giving us a little look into your life and your projects. Greatly appreciate you being with us this week and kind of just going behind the scenes of people who have a real passion for entertainment like you do, and you brought it to a podcast, which is pretty amazing. You know, that you can also bring these big stars to us too.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a great honor. Thank you.
Mike Faber, welcome to the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, you host a podcast somewhat like ours. You deal with a little bit more sci-fi and fantasy kind of stuff where we're pretty much all around celebrity music and pop culture and that kind of thing. But how did you get involved? Your podcast has been going on for an amazing 13 years.
Yes.
How did you, I mean, that's way early in the podcast game. You're one of the first.
You know, I saw these two pieces of string together, and I thought it'd be really awesome to put one can on one side and another can on the other. And we just basically said, hey, let's talk about Star Trek. So, no, just... No, basically, you know, I started podcasting in 2008, and basically I had heard a couple different podcasts. There was a Doctor Who podcast I had listened to, and there was a Star Trek one, and there was just a couple other shows that I had heard and talked about and everything. But it's like, these guys are okay. If these guys can do it, why can't I? Type thing. I had been in college radio, and I did like some overnight radio DJ stuff in the early 90s. And basically from there, I went off and did my grown-up job, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
And
what was that?
I was a graphic designer, and then I worked into my way into web design and web mastering, and doing UX and UI, which is user experience and user interface design work for websites and small mom and pop type companies. For a while, I owned my own company, and I even did work with the movie industry for a little bit back in the early 2000s. When you watch a movie and you see when basically, you're watching a movie and you see in the movie a photo with George Clooney and Julia Roberts together in high school, or something like that. They never went to high school together.
Exactly. Yep.
So somebody had to put it together. That was me. I did all those kind of, like, I designed magazine covers when you saw, Alec Baldwin with Man of the Year or something.
Yes.
I was the one who did that. Or a Kevin Smith movie, Jay and Silent Bob, fight the fart monster or whatever. Basically, that was me doing the artwork for the different studios and stuff like that.
Now we know where all these memes come from.
Yeah, exactly. You're not supposed to know
Come
that.
on. It's who you know and not what you know. But yeah, so I did that for a while, but then, podcasts started getting up, and I decided to start doing that and co-hosted on a couple different podcasts and guested, as, supposedly an expert of something. And I, sat in, and after about a year or two of doing that, I said, why not start my own show? And I started Earth Station 1. It was April 2010 I started it. And we've went through a few different co-hosts. We got so desperate at one point that we actually even brought my nephew or my son in, and, like, hey, come on, let's talk about Yellow Submarine or something like that. But then, we settled on a co-host like 17, 18 episodes in, and Mike Gordon, who's my co-host on the show, has been with me ever since. And so he's been with me for over 10 years.
Wow.
And we have not missed an episode or a week. We've, so we just put out today, as of this recording, episode 564 is coming out.
Wow.
That's crazy. What do you do? One a week?
We got a long way to go, buddy.
Yeah. Wow. We do one episode a week, and we've never repeated a topic, basically. We, talk all different things, and basically, when you do it, the designs, you do the, layouts of the podcast, it's a lot of work and everything like that. But we also did, on top of the 564 episodes, we have also done special episodes. We did, we've done a Dragon Con podcast that's spun out of our podcast. For those who don't know, Dragon Con is this huge fan con. It's kind of the same thing as like San Diego Comic-Con.
Okay.
But it's here in Atlanta every Labor Day weekend and gets up to probably close to 90,000 people.
Wow.
And, I've been a guest at the show for a couple of years because of the podcast. But we basically, do a podcast from the end of January till late September, eat one a month, talking about the con, who's coming, talking to people who run the con and everything. But that's spun out of Earth Station 1. But then people started saying, you're talking too much about Doctor Who on your show. So I said, you can never talk too much about Doctor Who. So we basically spun Earth Station Who off of Earth Station 1. And that is a bi-weekly podcast. And we do that, that's regularly, except for when Doctor Who is on, we do it weekly. So because we do the reviews of the episodes. And Earth Station Who we just did episode 264.
Wow.
And we just did that as a Facebook Live, because we're starting to play with doing more live stuff instead of, recording it and then having it go out to the general, public and everything.
Yeah.
So
my wife is a huge fan of Doctor Who.
Oh yeah, it's fun seeing, who likes Doctor Who likes the old series, who likes the new series, all that kind of stuff. And I've been watching Doctor Who since I was 10, so that was last week. So
Right.
So how did you come up with the name for your podcast, Earth Station One? How did that transpire?
it went through a couple different iterations. We thought of like the Geek Station. We thought of, all these different iterations. And then I started thinking, wouldn't it be kind of cool, watching 2001, you saw the big space station at the beginning of the movie. And it's like, they think they called it like, Earth Station Zero or something like that. And it was like, wow, what about Earth Station One?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, ding. But it's funny. Earth Station One has gotten us into a little bit of trouble sometimes, because if you hear Earth Station One, you have no idea what it's about. You don't know if it could be an architecture firm. It could be,
You might be a flat Earth podcast. Who knows?
Exactly. Yeah. You never know. Well, yeah, but then it'd be funny when the space station flips over on the other side. So, but yeah, it's kind of fun that way. But somebody actually owned the domain Earth Station One originally. So originally the podcast was spelled ERTH. So it was
okay.
Earth Station. But the person gave up the domain, and so when we fully became Earth Station One.
Nice.
And as we became, bigger and bigger, and we formed the network with the shows that spun off of us, and then friends of ours were like, hey, you're starting a network, can I join in? And we had a science show right away. Then we had also another geek show, and it was, starting to build. So we started the ESO Network, which is our podcast network. And right now we are at 27 shows, and we're about to add our 28th show, probably in the next 2 weeks. We have a Star Trek show. Just happens to be called Earth Station Trek,
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, so
At least you let them in with a similar name. So.
Well, I actually formed the show because I wanted a Star Trek show on my network, but I didn't have time to host another one. So I basically roped people into doing it, and they're knocking it out of the ballpark. These guys are great. And,
See, I'm a huge Star Trek fan.
I basically, because I also teach people how to podcast. I teach people, I mentor people, and so I taught them what they had to do the podcast, and they agreed to it. And the way we do it, we just don't let anybody into the network. As long as they have an Earth Station in front of their name, they're part of the network. No.
Earth Station Fancounters. I don't know if that works.
Earth Station fan account. No. But no, it's seriously, in all truth, the way it works is when, we have, we used to let anybody in willy-nilly, when we first started. We didn't know better. What did I know about running a network and everything? So, everything I've done is learning from scratch and basically all osmosis. And, will this work? No, that just gave me an electric shock. No, so it basically is, just trial and error. And we've tried letting podcasts in sight unseen. We never listened to them. Nothing.
That's a
Come
bad
on
idea.
in, basically. But now we have like rules that you have to have like 6 episodes under your belt, and you also have to have kind of, you have to have some kind of audience built. You have to have, proof that you guys are committed to doing your show, because we've had so many shows join the network, and then within 6 months they're gone,
right?
Type thing. And we don't want that. We want people who are going to be in for the longevity of it. And, we've had probably total about 70 shows on our network who've come and gone.
Well, it's hard because podcasts, sometimes the average length of a show is 9 episodes and they're gone.
Well, exactly. And, in my class I teach, and, because I teach a class, I mentor, and I also, when I go to conventions and stuff like Dragon Con or Atlanta Comic Con or MegaCon or other shows around the country, I teach a podcasting 101 course. And one of the things I tell people, actually the 2 things I tell people, 90% of you will not make it past your 10th episode. Because that's just a fact. Mm-hmm. Because podcasting, you guys know this, podcasting is just not talking to somebody. Podcasting is also marketing, it's editing, it's being creative and coming up with a schedule and getting it out to the people and building a brand.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. And then also on top of it, the other thing I tell people is you're not going to become rich doing a podcast. You're not going to have 100,000 listeners after 5 episodes. You're going to be lucky to break 100 within your first 5 episodes.
Right.
If you do, mazel tov, congratulations. All that type of stuff. You're going to, if you somehow open the genie bottle and you're able to do it, it's great on you. I'm very pleased that you guys can do it. Rare. It is completely. And that's part of doing podcasting. I do it for the love of it. I'm a geek. I've been a geek my whole life. I was the kid who used to get beat up because he collected comic books and watched Star Trek and Doctor Who, And, I like doing it. I love doing it. And it's a passion. But, it's interesting because Earth Station 1, which is, we consider it like a hybrid show, kind of like what you guys do, because we do interview people. Mm-hmm. We do, we have, it's what we like to call a magazine show.
Yeah, you've done movie reviews too. I've listened to a few of those.
Mm-hmm. We do movie reviews, but we also do music reviews. We also do talk to celebrities. We also talk to artists. We also talk to writers and we just talked to this last week a movie producer from Australia. He found us and he wanted us to interview him. I said, of course, I'm not going to say no. But that's cool. But it's funny. But like this next week, we're interviewing Ted Lange from The Love Boat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love him.
And
Bartender.
Good old Isaac from
Yep.
So it's pretty awesome. So I made a promise to myself I would not. So Ted, how you doing? I made sure I would not use my fingers. I promised I would not do that.
He'll probably still laugh.
But but he's also, we've talked to, people from Star Trek. We've talked to people from Doctor Who. We've talked to, people from Farscape and all these different shows. But, like this next week's topic is going to be the 2021 class nominees for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We're going to talk all about that. And, so each week it's something different. And right now we're scheduled, our show is already scheduled out till early June. So, it's not like we're going from like the base of our pants and going, hey, what do you feel like talking about this week? Type thing.
I hate those shows. And sometimes I wonder how these things are even getting sponsors, and I think they're fake sponsors, but just the nonsense and the talking over people and not giving you have a guest on the show, let them talk. And I think we do a pretty good job of that. Those shows drive me nuts, and I wonder why why are they listening?
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree with you guys. There's so many bad podcasts out there, and the running joke right now is podcasting in 2021 is like a tramp stamp in 2000. Everyone could have one, and because anybody could podcast.
Yeah,
and this is what I tell my class: you have a phone, you could podcast because you could record right onto your. But don't
do that. Don't do that.
No. People do. I've heard podcasts where people are in their car.
I know.
Driving and, on their commute to work, they're talking about random thoughts and stuff. And people are listening to these people and things like that. But you also have to be careful because there's a lot of scammers out there now, too.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if you guys want to get into that or,
Well, we were going to talk to you about listenership a little bit because with a network, you're all self-promoting each other, which is one of the benefits of being in a network, but a lot of people want to sponge off of it and not do their fair share. So not really, I know there's a lot of people scamming saying, I'm going to get you to be #1 on Google Podcasts and all this stuff, and they probably can't do it. But what's been your recommendation to your podcast and your network that want to increase their listenership?
Well, it's mostly, through osmosis. If you work and if you build and you promote, you're going to get listeners. And that's how we always recommend that people find, a group of podcasters that you like, that you can talk to, like I'm doing right now. People hopefully are going to be listening to my interview and go, hey, Earth Station 1, these guys sound really cool. This is what they talk about. I love that. I'm going to go find them up on iTunes, or I'm going to go find them on Amazon or wherever you listen to a podcast. Or as like we say, we're up, listen to us wherever fine podcasts are found. Even Earth Station 1 is there, So,
we even show up.
Yeah, we even show up where the fine podcasts are. So, or as we used to joke about it, we're the largest podcast that nobody's ever heard of, So but it's true, because that's how you build audience, though. And, you get shocked by how many people are listening and come up to you, because you build a fan base. You build a base of listeners who become friends, or become, true believers in what you're talking about. I've had somebody come up to me at a con once and say, I go to bed with you every night. And it's like,
that's not creepy.
No, but it's true. Yeah. And, people like, your voice puts me to sleep. And it's like, I don't know if that's good or not, This is, coming from a guy
Don't
who
drive while you listen then.
Exactly. Please don't, like with my wife, she, if I put a book on tape or a podcast on and while we're in the car, she's out like that. Just people's voices soothe her to sleep. But, we don't recommend that, please listen to something that's going to keep you awake while you're driving. So
exactly.
But it's interesting, because, there's ways to build a community. There's ways to build audiences that are legit. And, that's part of doing the legwork with a podcast, is getting out there, talking about your show, doing the elevator speeches, telling, putting, sharing in different Facebook groups and stuff. But, I've found over the years, there's also wastes with social media too.
Yeah. Drop your podcast link below. Don't do that.
Don't do that, because that's an invitation to your spammers.
Yeah.
That's the invitation to, hi, my name is Kareem and I'm from, Mumbai, and
Right.
I can get you up on Amazon or Apple front page and get you 10,000 listeners right away, only for $400 a month. Right. And I do know podcasters that have done it.
Oh my gosh, really?
Oh yeah. No, there's people that fall for that. Sorry, I almost said. There's people that I stopped myself. I did stop myself. But yeah, there are people out there that have fallen for that, and it's just crazy.
Well, pitch us your network. Tell us where we can find you and your shows and Earth Station 1.
Sure. ESO Network is a network of geeks for geeks. And we are basically 27 shows that have all different topics, anything from Doctor Who, Star Trek, Star Wars, comic books, geeky encounters, even science and wrestling. We have everything that you could think of. And it's all branded under ESO Network. You could find our feed wherever fine podcasts are found. Or if you want to listen to my show, which is the Earth Station 1 podcast, which is, two guys just talking about anything geeky since 2010. And It's pretty awesome.
It's done very well, Mike. I've enjoyed listening in preparation for the interview, just to kind of get a flavor of what you're doing over there. And it shows that you've been doing it for 13 years, because it's a very polished show.
Thank you.
I have one question for Mike that I've been dying to ask.
Okay, go for it.
Because I'm a comic book fan.
Sure.
What's your favorite comic book?
Oh, that's like saying which is my favorite child, dude.
I do have a favorite.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I've been, like I said, I started collecting comics. My grandmother started getting me when I was like 3 or 4, and I've always been a huge Superman and Batman fan, and the Spider-Man too. But I'm also, for some reason, I always drifted towards like the teen books. So I've always loved like the Legion of Superheroes and the Justice League.
Okay. My favorite is Superman for DC, and Marvel is Spider-Man.
Nice.
So cool. Thanks.
You got to listen to his show.
Yeah, you definitely.
Definitely.
It's great. We have fun.
Mike Faber, thanks so much for being here on our podcast plug. A little extended segment this week, but I felt like you deserved it because you've got a lot of knowledge and insight, and I think people should check you out. Earth Station 1 on the ESO Network.
Perfect.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Our thanks to Andrew and Mike for joining us on the show this week. We do appreciate both of you guys joining us and telling us a little bit about not only your podcast, but why you even got into the thing in the first place, which is why we started with Tracy, telling us why he'd even want to waste his time coming here to host
Wasting my
Fancounters.
time. Come on, man. This is awesome.
Who's the friend you get to hang out with? Who is that?
This guy that I met way long time ago during the music career.
Oh, cool. I'll have to meet him sometime.
Yeah, he sits to my right now.
You can follow us on social media. Go to YouTube. If you're not watching this podcast, you're not missing much, but you should check it out anyway. Go to YouTube and search Fancounters Podcast, and that's all I got for you today.
Seeing our faces is much better than just hearing our voices.
You know, we had so many emails about, why don't you do your show video? I want to see the celebrity you're talking to. I want to see your interview. And I thought, why would anybody want to sit around and look at somebody doing a podcast? But then you look at the YouTube numbers, and it's like crazy. People do want to watch the show.
Well, they want to see your interaction. They want to see your facial expressions. They want to... And then if you do something really stupid, then they can take a snapshot of it.
Oh,
And
great.
then put it out virally on
I can't wait to
internet.
be a meme. I always thought it was a meme. All right, I got to go. We'll talk to you guys next week.
See you later.
Bye.